Man, I thought I was the one who was supposed to be late.
I know, right?
Normally, Ash is fashionably late, but yeah, that's what happens. Ryan Wilson, yes, there are probably a few less people than normal. We're doing the stream on a Sunday rather than Saturday, and it is an old school comics and chill. So we're going to take questions, and we are going to talk about something to begin with. These guys don't even know what we're going to talk about, to start off with. But I do have some of my good friends here. The man that's so cool, they call him the Breen. What's up, Eric?
Morning, everyone.
That was exciting. All right, next up on the docket, we've got the Joe Rogan of comics YouTube. What's up, Ash?
Hey, what's going on? I bought some back issues this week.
Man, back issues are beautiful. And for last up, we got Doc. He's rooting for the Chiefs along with me this Sunday.
Oh yeah, go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.
My roomie's a Chiefs fan, so yeah, we're definitely on the Chiefs bandwagon, especially with the Steelers, being terrible.
Here you got Ash.
Uh-oh. Ash, do you watch football? He's muted. We got old school comics in the mix as well from Illinois. Hopefully you're rooting on the Chiefs as well. I'm from Missouri, so it's good to see we got another man from the Heartland as well. As Breen's from Ohio, right? Is that the Heartland? Oh man, there you go.
We don't even think about Super Bowls in this state anymore.
All right, Ash. The first question's for you. What's up for you, buddy? What was the very first comic book you ever read?
Uncanny X-Men number 162.
And was it a gem or not? Was it good?
It was a gem. It's got Wolverine on the cover. He's about to be turned into a brood, and he's doing the on your knees kind of. Was that pose made famous by the movie Platoon?
With the hands in the air.
Yeah, and he's resisting, and I was like, I don't know how, I was probably like 9 years old or something when that came out, and I think I picked that up. I don't even remember where it was, probably a 7-Eleven or something of that nature. And I just, obviously it grabbed me. I bought it. It stuck with me for all those years. And then when I was about, 12 or 13, I saw another X-Men issue on the shelf, and it was 211 with that famous cover, if you remember, with the X-Men. It's a gray background. They're saying, "Come on, mess with us, make our day." And that struck me as such a badass thing. I had to start collecting comics there going forward.
Oh yeah, I think that was a Romita cover.
Yep, John Romita Jr.
Yeah, that was during John's first run around on Uncanny.
Before he sucked. Before he sucked balls.
Oh God!
had shadowing.
Good morning, Pele.
Good
All
morning.
right, so everybody, this is an old school comics and chill. We're going to take viewer questions throughout the thing. First, we're going to talk about our very first comic we bought, what made them special, and why we're still reading comics. If you're watching the channel right now and you want to tell us your first comic, maybe we'll let Pele come in with his salty ass and talk some crap about it. Who's next? Breen, what was the first comic you bought?
Well, I don't remember which one, but I know I was halfway through, and my mom, donated it to help with the war effort.
There you go.
Man, you effing old.
I figured if I don't make that joke, one of you guys would have gotten to it. I think it was Justice League of America 91. So the cover's Batman carrying the Flash's dead body back into the satellite. Yeah, because I remember I got that like a drugstore when I was 9. And then started collecting about 4 years later. But I think that was my first.
Nice.
Yeah, I was a baseball card collector in those days, so it took a few years for me to realize I was in the wrong hobby.
All right, Doc. What's the very first comic book you ever bought?
I bought Uncanny X-Men number 222. It's got a Mark Silvestri cover of Wolverine about to stab Sabretooth right in the chest. I was came out in 1987. I think I was 7 years old about then, and love that cover. It just looked badass, and you know, it's I you know what, it was, as I said, you know, Silvestri's my favorite Wolverine artist of all time. He's probably my favorite X-Men artist. If he's not, he's damn close. And it was just a great cover.
That cover sold a lot of X-Men comics.
Yeah, I think it did.
It did. I remember
Yeah,
that.
it probably cost Doc like $50,000.
75 cents.
No, I'm talking in the long run. Your X-Men.
Oh yeah. That in the long run, that thing that cost me more than I could possibly imagine.
All right,
A
old
couple of
school
relationships.
Comics says, his first was Brave and the Bold 129 and 130 from a Whitman pack my dad bought for him. Pele, did he make a good choice?
Yeah, that's not bad. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's not bad at all. I think that was Killer Croc, and there was like a Killer Croc issue in there, and I think the other one may be Scarecrow. It's pretty cool.
There you go. All right, Pele, we're on to you. You have the largest collection of anybody I know. You have one of the largest personal collections of comics in the world. What was the very first comic book you ever bought?
Well, the very first, I've got two different answers on this, but the very first new comic I ever bought, like right off the rack, was Daredevil 158, which was the premiere issue for Frank Miller rather, and Daredevil, incredible. Cover it just snapped my eyes to it. You know, very bright red of Daredevil's costume, and you know, Deathstalker coming up over the. Is that who that was? Gravestalker?
Deathstalker.
Deathstalker coming up over the. I don't know why I always have problems with that particular villain's name, but just so iconic, so amazing. But the first back issue comic I ever bought was Amazing Spider-Man 101, which was the first appearance of Morbius, and I actually bought it at the same time with my dad. I was like 6.5 or 7 at the time, and he said, well, what are we going to buy? And I was like, well, and I saw the Morbius cover, and I was like, holy cow, I want that. He's smacking the crap out of Spider-Man. He's got to be better than Spider-Man if he's just smacking him like a biatch. So, you know, I want that. So we put our money. I put my money in with his money, and I think we paid like $8 for it.
Wow, that was a lot of money back then. That was like a car.
Yeah, it was. That was the back issue. It was a back issue, and it was in near mint condition. I've still got it. It's over here on my wall. And now it's probably about 1,800 now, 1900 now, with the way that that comics spiked in value with the Jared Leto news. But
yeah, the movie announcement always spikes books like that, though.
Yeah. But it's been a long time
investing
coming.
in comics well since he was 6 years old.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming for that book, though. It's kind of stagnated in value for like six or 7 years, so it's probably close to about where it should be. But
so if you're watching the channel right now and with us for an Old School Comics and Chill, thank you very much. Please give that thumbs up a smash so we can get some people in here. If you have any questions or something that you want to talk about with this fine panel of comics aficionados, make sure you put it in the chats and I'll pop it on the screen and we're going to talk about that. Otherwise, we're going to talk about old school comics and stuff like that. This is for you, Breen. Josh, one of the collaborators on the channel, says the first comic book he bought was Superman Unchained #1. Please chastise the young man.
First, I'd have to remember what Superman Unchained was. Give me a second. No, you know, I've actually heard decent things about that. I actually bought the hardcover at Ollie's for a couple bucks about 6 months ago. I haven't read it yet, but isn't it Jim Lee? I mean, isn't it?
yes, it is.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but that was the one that was supposed to be done by Orson Scott Card, and then the internet decided to lose its mind about him.
Yeah.
Well, you know, they canceled him. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. I
He's
had no
a
idea.
filthy conservative, you know.
Well,
There you go.
if you start with Superman Unchained, there's nowhere to go but up. How's that?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, he's
Bendis
on the
would
Tomasi
disagree.
run now. I believe he. Well, don't bring up Bendis yet.
I'm
That's for
just
later in
saying.
the show.
Oh man, I just
I'll
woke
take
up. Don't
Snyder
do that.
Jim Lee Superman over Bendis any
Yeah.
day.
I just puked in my mouth a little bit. Doc, Trevor McGuire says his favorite X-Men artist is Jai Lee, and Mark Teixeira is a close second. What do you think about that?
You know what? I liked Mark. I don't remember Jay ever really doing much X-Men. I think he did a couple of covers, and he's done a couple of Wolverine covers, but I don't really recall when did Jay Lee do X-Men?
Is that maybe supposed to be Jim Lee?
Yeah, I mean, I could see Jim Lee because Jim was, you know, kind of iconic on it.
Didn't Jay do like one of the peripheral books, like for a little bit, like maybe Wolverine or
Maybe an X-Men Unlimited, possibly.
He did. I know he did covers for Wolverine during the third series when it got relaunched after whenever Dakin became Wolverine for a little while, and then they relaunched the book again. But I don't recall. And you know, of course, Comic Book DB is
Not working
dead.
anymore.
No, it's dead anymore. They killed it. So yeah, I haven't the slightest clue.
He's got
Jay-
credits for Executioner Song, X Factor.
Oh shit! Yeah, he did. He was on X. He did a couple of issues during Executioner Song. I remember that now. That was when one of the
X-Men
Kuberts-
was his first. X-Men was his first. Sorry, I was AFK for a second. AFK was his. I mean, X-Men was his first professional artwork. Period.
Was it?
Big
'Cause
Two?
I was going to say I thought he did Wildcats trilogy
Yeah,
before that.
for Big Two. For Big
Okay.
Two. Yeah.
All right, so we do have a super chat from Ryan Wilson, 199. Why was the late 90s to early 2000s DC art so bad? Breen, is that old enough for you, buddy?
Well, it was, but yeah, Ash has a two-word answer for that. I would say if DC was suffering from poor art in those days, I would say because a lot of the best artists were still working for Image, Wildstorm, and they had splintered off into so many different companies at that time. And I'm sure Marvel had the rest of them. So maybe that's just like a dead period for art for DC.
Yeah, DC stole all the artists in the late 80s. Like I think was like George Perez and like one other person hung out at DC. Everyone went to Marvel, and then the guys who made it big at Marvel said, "We'll start our own company."
Yeah, unfortunately, Marvel has two tiers. They've got God tier talent, and they've got Joe Schmo off the street talent. And there's not very much room in between them. DC is like the journeyman artists, and a lot of really great artists as well. But they don't have the low end talent like Marvel does, thankfully. But it's just that's the way Marvel does it.
So Ryan added, I just read all of Morrison's JLA, Batman's No Man's Land, and reading Ed Brubaker's Batman run, and the art is bad, especially on Brubaker's run, and many of the No Man's Land was experimental art. What did you remember about Ed Brubaker's Batman run, Pele?
You take it or leave it. Some people really love that. It was definitely, I think, an acquired taste more than anything. It's kind of like it's kind of like the first time you see a Mobius cartoon, a Mobius piece of work, or a cartoon. It's like, oh well, or that Silver Surfer Black, that artist, I never can remember his name.
Tradmore.
It's like, well, some people rave about that, and they feel about the same way about Brubaker. So it just depends on your tastes. It's not like John Romita Jr., who just apparently nowadays just craps out whatever. Rubs his ass with it and says, "Hey, look." It's Justice League.
Actually,
Rand
Comics 1000
coming in
was
3,
rough.
Whatever.
2,
Whatever.
1.
Whatever. Bendis.
That was a rough. Pele and I did talk about that comic in detail, and it might be a subject of this week's worst of the week. All right, Isaiah Garcia is saying, great way to start the day listening to Comic Aficionados and reading Cloak and Dagger issues. Who likes Cloak and Dagger?
Ooh, me. I love Cloak. And that's one of my favorite miniseries when I was younger. I really liked that miniseries. But yeah, I always liked the chick on there. She was really hot, and Cloak was a badass. So yeah, that kind of drew me in. They came in during Peter Parker's Sensational Spider-Man run. Had a really good introduction in that run. So yeah, they were pretty good. I liked them a lot. I was kind of upset as far as the way the TV series went, but yeah, I like the characters. I always thought that they kind of added a little bit of spice wherever they ended up in whatever title they showed up in.
Well, it was they were always useful to see some mutants that weren't X-Men,
right?
That were interacting with the rest of the universe, because for the most part, even though they weren't really mutants, they were, but they weren't.
They weren't born mutants. They were kind of like mutated.
Yeah, they were mutates. But they kind of got mixed in with the mutants for a little bit, because they Marvel did that. They kind of started mixing the same way that like Deadpool, they've kind of mixed him in with the mutants, even though he's definitely not a mutant.
I can't wait to see if Deadpool makes his way onto Krakoa. What happens?
I get that question a lot in my comments. So I don't know if you guys remember this. There was a movie in the 80s by Dabney Coleman called Cloak and Dagger. Was that associated?
I don't believe so.
No.
Breen, you remember that movie, right? It's classic.
I've heard of it.
You didn't watch it? It was really good. There we go. Old School Comics says, I became a collector with ROM and X-Men in 1979. Doc, this dude's been collecting X-Men longer than you.
Oh, yeah. Hey, what? As I said, I only came in 1987.
I've been collecting X-Men longer than Doc.
Yeah, exactly. I only came in.
I have
87.
too. So why
you gave up X-Men for 20 years, Ash?
Breen, you've been collecting comics longer than anyone.
Yeah, shut the fuck up, Breen. You've been collecting comics longer than like Stan Lee was.
That was harsh.
What are they called? Friendly Time Comics.
Pele.
Breen was the one that
had a bad time at Mass today. I'm just saying. He's a little more salty.
No, that's tonight. That's tonight. I just got up and I'm not doing.
That's the problem is he hasn't gone to Mass yet.
Yeah, you just got a ray of sunshine down there.
I've not had my daily cup of Jesus, so I'm salty right now. No,
yeah. Breen's the one that came up with the idea of comics, so he was there before they even started them.
He presented it. Yeah, it's like, listen, my buddy Stan here has been writing these stories. I think he'd be perfect for this idea I have called comic books. It's a film format. We have superheroes. It's sequential art. It's going to be amazing. It's a big thing.
I want to thank myself for opening the floodgates for all of you sons of bitches.
All right. We got anything else in the comments people want to talk about? Here's Scarpad's Comic Tricks. I grew up loving Avengers and Incredible Hulk in the 70s, but then found the early 70s Detective Comics and started a 50-issue love affair with Batman. I still love those issues of Detective. Pele, don't you have Detective Comics like 1 and 27 and maybe some more of those really cool ones?
Yeah. That's that. Well, I was a really big Batman fan growing up, and I got on a kick right after I forgot my first real job. After I got out of technical school and got an associate's degree, I basically rented the cheapest place that I could find and bought the most expensive comics I could get. Because
priorities.
Yeah, well, it was during the time during the Batman movie came out, and there was a lot of hype around Batman. It was like, these books are going to scream and up in value, and I'm never going to have a chance to get them again. So I begged, borrowed, and did everything I could to get the most valuable Batman comics I could, and you know, it turned out to be a really smart investment. It turned out really, really well for me. But you know, if I had to look back now, I don't know if eating ramen for like 2 years was really worth it. But I had to make sacrifices and did what I could, and and I drove a Yugo, and I just or
Hey, but you're not eating ramen anymore, right?
God,
Sounds like those sacrifices paid off.
See, you're not eating ramen anymore. You're eating, caviar and all that nice stuff.
No, I still love ramen, man. Ramen is the bomb. That's the shit, dude. I love good ramen. Ooh, it's great.
All right,
The
we've
difference
got
is that Pele has his own private Japanese chef now.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
This is why you just sell drugs in order to pay for your comics.
There
Sell
you
cocaine.
go.
Let's go.
Cocaine thing. Long box diving is saying Hawk and Dove is better. I'm assuming that's over Cloak and Dagger. Is that sacrilege? Who agrees with him?
Yeah, I would have to say yes.
Which Hawk and Dove?
I'd say the Hawk that was going to become Monarch until they ruined that, because everyone knew that it was going to be Hawk that became Monarch in Armageddon 2001.
Now, I will say the original Hawk and Dove series from '68 that Ditko started on, that was a nice little time capsule, because those are really fun to read. But as far as characters go, I'd still have to probably go Cloak and Dagger.
All right, so I know this is something that Doc wants to talk about, and let's talk about this because Ryan Wilson wants to as well. Let's talk about how Richard C. Meyer is writing an Expendables comic with Sylvester Stallone and Chuck Dixon, and Stallone's about to get attacked for being associated with Richard. I do agree with that. Doc, on a scale of Captain Marvel to Wolverine, how excited are you for this Expendables comic?
About Spider-Man. No, actually, you know what? That's a little too high. I'd say
Kid Cable?
No, it's not Kid Cable level, but I'd have to say maybe like a Juggernaut solo series, which might be interesting.
Juggernaut.
Yeah, same here. I like Juggernaut. So I like the Expendables, and honestly, I still like Richard. I think he's still the most normal, guy that's doing those, the Indiegogo books. I think it's strange that, the borderline autistic
Sociopath.
No, I don't think Richard's a sociopath.
No, I'm just talking about the others in general.
Oh yeah, the rest of them. I mean, yes, but the borderline autistic dude that's got obvious OCD and has more children than Mike Miller.
Hey, never met a woman he didn't want to knock up.
Yes,
so. He
never met a non-white woman he didn't want to knock up.
Hey, now it's all right.
But you know what? Okay, so Stallone is. I mean, I think it's a great thing for Zach. I really do. Now, Stallone getting attacked by angry SJWs. Honestly, he got far more shit for Last Blood than he will ever get from the comics media.
I know.
They're going to sit there. He's going to sit there and go, who the hell even are you people? He was getting attacked by Variety for Last Blood. Do you think some idiot on Bleeding Cool is going to even bother him? It's not even going to get on his radar.
Besides, he's a Republican. They're going to think that, oh, well, he's just one of them. So,
and additionally, look, Stallone has an agent. He's got an agent whose job it is to make sure that he doesn't step in it in any way that's actually, legit, and I guarantee they did their due diligence and saw that, you know, Zach's just a normal, you know, mediocre writer, kind of a spurg, that's very entertaining and engaging with his audience.
All right, Tevye Smolka is throwing dirt in your eye, Doc. Look what he has to say about that.
Expendables, I don't care. Okay, well, you know,
Tevye, about you and Tevye, it's like you guys are beefing 24/7.
I know it. Yeah,
Tevye just has very, very poor taste.
Tevye prefers X-Men Red to Expendables.
I know.
What if this book de-ages Jonathan Kent? Does Tevye like it then?
Oh,
that's a good question.
If you return John Kent from the Super Sons into the Expendables, what is it? Straight out of hell, something like that. I bet you Tevye would be on board.
Jason Statham would just stick a thing of dynamite up his butt and blow it up.
Yeah, like, I mean, look, you know,
of course, Jonathan Kent, wouldn't take any damage from it, but it's still pretty disgusting.
Plus, the other thing is, plus the fact that, look, while Zach is doing all, he's getting it produced and everything. This is a story that was mostly put together by Stallone and Chuck Dixon. Right. Most of the dialogue's being done by Dixon. Zach's doing some of the side quest stuff, and kind of contributing to a little bit to the main story. But for the most part, it was, this is Chuck and Stallone with Zach acting like almost like an executive producer. And I think that's great. Now, I think it needs to get into comic shops.
Exactly.
But that's a whole other issue.
Because it's basically most 99% of comic readers out there, it won't even pop up on their radar unless it shows up in their shop. So
exactly,
it's either going to be a tiny little bloop, or it could be a big wave. It depends on how they decide to market it and present it.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how many pages it is. Probably about 120 pages or something. Kind of his normal, and that's so I think it's $30, which is a little high, but he's also got to pay licensing fees this time.
Yeah,
and cut somebody else in on probably the majority of the money.
Yeah, Dixon, and I don't know if Stallone will really want any of the money, but Dixon certainly will. So
yeah, I mean, obviously Chuck's gonna want his money, and I don't know what kind of royalties Stallone has on this, but I mean, hey, look, it's a legit deal. It's a cool project. It looks like it's going to be relatively successful. I'm happy for him. I'm still waiting for him to get the Totally Spies license, though.
Well, there you go. I just want to say we got a $5 Aussie super chat from Comics Nerd Down Under. Hey, Wes, just started my own channel. Would love a shout out to get some subscribers. I did my first video on the clock from Image Comics. Well, there's your shout out. Thank you very much for the super chat, and best of luck. And I'll check out your video on the clock on Image Comics maybe after this. I do have to go to bed a little bit early because of the Super Bowl tomorrow. I'm super excited. I'm a lifelong Chiefs fan. And thank you very much for supporting the channel. So Josh is saying even if it was $25 to $30, no way, because you got to $10 shipping in there, so it's actually a $40 book. These Indiegogo projects are too much. I'll put that $40 away for my next DC omnibus, which will be better anyway. I do agree they are too much, and $40 is a big ask for a story that was outlined from Sylvester Stallone, and then Chuck Dixon's going to be the dialogue, and then the 3 side stories I believe will be all Zach and some other artists. But that's just my opinion. All right, we got anything else? All right, rebut me, Doc. Tell me I'm full of it.
No, I legitimately think that it is a big ask. Do I think $40 is Too much, yes, but that's because I have issues with the whole way that they've organized this whole IGG thing with everybody handling all their stuff on their own. So nobody's working out better contracts with, fulfillment services or anything like that. They're not, or printers or anything. Everybody's just going it alone instead of actually putting together, ways to get their costs down. But hey, that's just them being bad at business.
All right, what else we got going on here? Here's something. Our boy Zebra is saying, I'm interested in working in the industry, and I agree with what Comicsgate and EVS on a lot of things, but would like to work for Marvel or DC sometime as well. What would you guys recommend me doing? Pele, you're the one that's in the industry. What would you recommend?
Keep your mouth shut for now. I would just kind of go, yeah, this is what I like to do. I'm good at it. And then you do it. You don't talk politics with anybody. You just kind of let it lie for now, because the HMFOCs, are they're not gonna want you anywhere near them if they know that you believe, Comicsgate or EVS. So, they're gonna hate you. They're gonna call you an istophobe, and you're gonna be banned from blackballed from ever doing anything with the big two in comics. So if you want to go that route, fine. If you want to go the other route, you can appeal to some of the indie publishers. Submit your work. Come up with a good portfolio that you can present, and just put yourself out there. And if you don't get any hits that way, there's always self-publishing digitally online, to get your name out there. And the best way to do anything is to just do it. And if you're good, people like it, and you present yourself well, then they'll want you to work with them. So
I would echo that. Yes, if you want to be a writer, make sure that you're writing every day, that you're writing stories, submitting them to the publishers. Basically, you should take the Todd McFarlane approach. Don't let them say no. Just keep putting yourself out there. Eventually, you're going to get better. You're going to get feedback from some of these publishers, and you're going to see the things that you need to change. And, obviously collaborate with other writers. If you're an artist, do the same thing. You gotta have that portfolio of work, whether you're doing sci-fi, cape, stuff like that, and definitely be submitting your work and getting that feedback and getting your name out there. That way people start recognizing you. And once you earn a bit of a reputation, maybe you self-publish a comic book or two, maybe you can get that foot in the door that you're looking for at a Marvel or DC or Image or wherever, your dreams take you. So,
and also, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ash.
No, go Ash.
Oh, I was just going to say that, remember that the internet is forever. Yeah, and that if you absolutely must interact on the internet in a controversial manner, take a little cue from my boy Pele over there, myself. You can just create a anonymous identity.
Yes.
And you can just speak your mind anonymously, and you can keep your real identity pure for your resume and your networking, that just remember, it's 10 years from now, something you said today will be dug up potentially. So
yeah, it will. It'll come back to bite you in the ass.
And Josh is saying that he asked Scott Snyder at convention. He told him to make sure he was always writing and to pay artists to get his work out there. That's what he told him to do at conventions. Does anybody remember how many times McFarlane was told no before they finally let him write a book? Or
300.
At least
300 times.
Yeah. He got rejected 300 times before he finally got a gig.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that this industry is all about cronyism and nepotism. If you don't know somebody that can get you in the door, you're going to have to work about 1,000 times harder than anybody else.
Or unless he's a minority, he's a woman, or he has some type of disability or something like that.
Can you just identify as all of those? And
You can, if you identify as a Hispanic, Black, African American woman, I'm sure that you can probably, get your foot in the door like tomorrow. But otherwise, it's gonna take a lot of time. It's gonna take a lot of effort.
Or you just go the mags route and hire an agent. No, I'm not kidding. Hire an agent, and they will make you look a lot more effing important than you actually are.
excuse me, I have a question.
Go for it.
How does she afford an agent?
All right, we're not even going to start this conversation. Heavy Smoker says, any opinion on Linda Hamilton saying she's done with the Terminator franchise? Good. She should have been done after the second one, and the franchise should have been done after that because it's absolutely sucked all the way along. And the last movie looked ridiculous. Nobody wants to see a grandma toting around a shotgun, in a serious action movie. If it was a parody, it would have been great. You got anything else out here?
Look, she was basically done with acting until they came and threw a truckload of money at her. So,
yeah.
I mean, what seriously, in the last 15, 20 years, has she done anything? I thought she was done with acting.
Chuck. She was Chuck's mother.
Oh, yeah, on that TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think other than that,
she was riding in a golf cart around, Palm Springs with her husband, watching him play golf for 15 years. So, then she decided, oh, well, they're wanting to pay me like $5 or $6 million to, come back and do Sarah Connor. So, whatever.
All right.
I think it's a little bit of a save face too. If you quit the Terminator franchise before it goes belly up, then you can say that you walked away and it didn't walk away from you.
Oh, she crushed it though. She killed the Terminator franchise at the end. So it's so sad.
I wouldn't say that she killed anything. She got her payday. That franchise is already dead. Some big Marvel omnibus getting a reprint. Annihilation, Uncanny X-Force finally getting complete Infinity Gauntlet in omnibus format. That box sweat is going to be sweet. What are you looking forward to in that, Doc? You going to buy any of those?
I might, even though I have already all the singles of Uncanny X-Force, I have a tendency of picking up a lot of the X-Men omnibuses just to put on my bookshelf in case I want to dig them out and just read. So I'm thinking maybe that Uncanny X-Force omnibus. That's
Remender?
Yeah.
I will absolutely be buying that. That was one of the best comic stories I've ever read in my life. This is awesome.
Yeah. And it's like 35, 38 issues, something like that. It'll all be in one omnibus.
Depiction of Deadpool.
Yeah, absolutely. Other than Joe Kelly's depiction of Deadpool, he's my favorite. Remender's was great. Plus, you know what? That was the one series that felt like a spiritual successor to Claremont X-Men, because it took stuff that you knew, pushed it forward without really damaging anything that came before or negating anything that came before. I think the only thing that I didn't like to come out of that whole thing was Tabula Rasa.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's become kind of like another Savage Land type place, except for in Montana.
Dude, the Sunshine State. Beautiful. But you know what's also interesting about that is Phantom X is kind of a lame-ass character.
Yeah. And
he makes them really cool.
He did. Well, because, apparently Phantom X is essentially a stolen version of a French public domain character that Grant Morrison wanted to kind of appropriate for the X-Men. I didn't even find this out until years later. I'm not super big on any like the French comic album stuff. I don't give a shit. I don't speak French. I don't speak Surrender. So
wow.
Yeah. So but I found out years later that, you know, Phantom X is essentially an appropriation of a French public domain character. Like
with what is it? Mortal Kombat character's outfit.
Yeah. I don't
like he looks like Scorpion.
Yeah,
Yep.
he does.
He does.
Except for in white.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty cool in that series. Otherwise, their character kind of sucks, in my opinion.
Did Grant Morrison
Sucks
create any good characters in X-Men? I think like every single character in his run was lame. We got
They
All
were,
right, Doc.
They
Any cool
were-
characters?
they were all pretty bland. I mean, Zorn was okay until you found out it was Magneto. You know, I guess Cassandra Nova was interesting. But once she became Ernst, that kind of sucked. You know, like Hugo, or not Hugo Girl, because that was from All Reds.
how about Glob?
No Girl.
Quentin Quire.
Jesus, Glob. Glob.
it's just
If-
terrible.
Yeah.
It's just a who's who of like all the worst X-Men ever created were all under Grant Morrison's run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll agree
Yeah,
with that.
that's honestly.
Oh
I
wait,
think-
didn't Bendis do Gold Balls?
Yeah, Bendis created
So
Gold.
Bendis was like, "Hold my beer. I
Yeah.
can do
But-
some Grant Morrison."
But at the same time, Bendis did also create Tempest Bell, who or Ava Bell, who, you know, Tempest, who I actually do like, because she actually does have a cool power and a cool concept. Everything else created under Bendis was terrible, but Tempest was cool. You know what? No, the only thing that Grant did that I really, really liked was the creating the different kind of tiers of the Phoenix, and the Black Bug room and the White Hot room, which was for the Phoenix, where Jean becomes, instead of just being a Phoenix, she becomes the White Phoenix of the Crown, which I thought was a cool kind of reimagining of the Phoenix lore in a way that actually added to it instead of subtracting to it.
Yeah, that would actually make a good subject at one time for some point for discussion. Be who's the single most powerful Marvel character that isn't like a cosmic entity, and she would. White Phoenix of the Crown would be like right up there. You talk about just incredible amounts of power. That's a shockingly powerful character.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a $9.99 super chat from Josh. Thank you very much. Just wanted to say, working my way through some DC gems right now: Deathstroke by Christopher Priest and Teen Titans by Adam Glass. Also reading Nightwing by Tomasi. Great stuff. I can't say enough good stuff about Teen Titans by Adam Glass. It's just a phenomenal series. When he reintroduced he revamped the lineup. He introduced 3 brand new characters. You know, Crush, Lobo's daughter. I believe one of them is Jin. She's basically a genie. And then Roundhouse is like a fat Asian kid that bounces and stuff. It seemed like it was going to be stupid, but all the characters are amazing. I love that series. Anyone else reading Teen Titans?
Yeah, I am. It's good. It's really, really good. Some issues are better than others. I think consistency is a little bit off, but overall, you know, especially since Crush joined the team around issue 20, I think that it's really coming to its own, and I've really enjoyed it a great deal.
Yeah, it was Ben Percy all the way through issue 19, and then Adam Glass took over at 20.
Yeah, that was kind of like that was the you know, it went from an also DC title to really coming into its own. What do you think, Breen?
I actually was reading a little bit of Teen Titans a couple of years ago, or then at the time when Bendis was coming, I basically quit everything at DC, and by the time I started easing back into it, I just never got around to picking Teen Titans back up.
Well, I would suggest you do, but I do think it's hilarious that Bendis has enough influence in this industry to make a man that's been reading comic books from 45 years to drop an entire publisher altogether just because he might be coming.
I sold all. No, I read Man of Steel, and then like by this Action Comics 101, I took all the Rebirth, everything from that entire thing, and just sold them back. I said I want nothing to do with this guy. It was quite the tantrum.
Now, it's worse with my dad. I mean, you're talking about somebody who collected Superman since like 1962, and guess what? 60 years down the toilet because Bendis is a piece of So,
being the tower of strength that I am, I've been buying back a ton of Rebirth lately. None of the Bendis Superman, but pretty much everything else. And I've got all the Tomasi Superman run back in most of the Action Comics. I just haven't gotten around to Teen Titans, but maybe I'll pick up the next one. I need some good recommendations, because if you just look at it without really knowing, you look at some of those characters and you go, yeah, that might be a little bit aimed a little bit younger than me. But I said, with your guys' recommendation, I probably will give it a shot.
So the thing is, Adam Glass he's going to be the showrunner on a new Netflix show soon. So once he's co-writing, I believe, Teen Titans right now with Robbie Williams. But once that's over and they're into the 5G stuff, he's gone. So I would go back to issue 20 and just start reading. I think you'll love it. It's a great series.
Isn't that the series that introduced the Batman Who Laughs?
Teen Titans?
Yeah. Wasn't his first appearance in Teen Titans of all places?
Yeah, it was actually. He came into his own on Metal, but I think Teen Titans was actually his very first appearance.
So it's like, how much is that going for now, Pele?
Oh, I think it's like $60.
I thought it was like 100.
It depends. 100 for like near mint, but just your run of the mill average copy out there, probably about $60.
Wow.
There you go. All right, let's talk about a legend in the industry, one of the great female creators of all time. Ada Nocenti was a secretary and worked her way up to being a terrific editor and writer. Doc, what's the best story Ada Nocenti ever wrote?
Daredevil. She took over after Frank Miller, and Frank left Matt as like a short order cook, and not even Daredevil anymore.
Yeah.
And she managed to bring him back and actually possibly even outdo what Frank did.
Hey now. Whoa. We're getting crazy up in the house.
Possibly.
A little disrespectful. Kind of disrespectful.
Settle down there, bottom row.
She added to the character. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And a little out of line here, Doc. Just a little out of line.
You know what? Frank did an amazing job of entirely deconstructing Matt, and Annie did a spectacular job of building him back together.
I'm with Doc.
You're just a contrarian.
We just did a video talking about Daredevil, and you never mentioned her name. What are you talking about, Breen? Come on.
This was not the topic, boss. I said Frank Miller saved the character. I didn't have time to go into it. Was long enough. Did you want me to bloviate some more?
Well, no, 20 minutes on a top 5 list is plenty. I'll give you that.
But I honestly, I think as good as Annie was as a writer, she was a far superior editor. The way she was able to always dig another story out of Claremont after 17 years on X-Men was amazing. She could keep Chris in line. She could keep him focused. Anytime he'd think that he ran out of something, she'd bring up 38 plot points that he still had dangling, and he'd be like, oh yeah, I could do one of these. And then he'd be, re-energized for another 3 years. Annie and Chris and Wheezy are, I think that is the trifecta of, that is what made X-Men amazing. And it was a little bit of writing, a little bit of editing, and a lot of them all kind of knowing each other and knowing how to get the best out of each other. And I'd say that, Annie as Chris's, wrangler,
his foil of sorts, I guess.
Yeah, she was a great, kind of person for him to bounce stuff off, and that made all the difference in the world.
All right, so the next one is Paolo Grossi is saying, after House of X Powers of 10, I decided to buy basically all of Hickman's stuff. It's a good move. I just ordered Manhattan Project, East to West, and Black Monday Murders. Excellent choices. What do you think about Decorum, his new Image title? I think it's going to be great. Looks like he's borrowing a lot of stuff from House of X Powers of 10, and he's exploring it probably in more of a direction that he wanted to go from the beginning. What do you think about that one, Doc? I know you thought that.
That was my exact, like, the minute I saw the preview art, I'm like, so House of X Powers of X was his test run for this. It was all it is a prototype. He figured out where there's problems, and he's going to streamline it in execution and go from there. All right, cool. But I don't need to read the same story again.
So I would say if you want some great Jonathan Hickman that's Marvel, he has a really badass story with his Fantastic Four is really good, but it's his Nick Fury, like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing that he did.
Oh, no. Really it was just called S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
And it goes into a lot of the history of S.H.I.E.L.D. and apparently S.H.I.E.L.D. being a much older organization than just being a government's, basically a Defense Department project.
Yes. I would highly suggest that because that one's awesome. It's better than Infinity. It's better than what was the other one he did? Was it Secret Wars?
Yeah, he finished off with Secret War.
Yeah, so I would definitely check that one out. All right, Doc. This one is basically aimed at you. I'm sorry, so many questions are going to Doc, but any opinion on the latest X-Men issue that has my girl Laura becoming Wolverine again because he's so happy?
I give up on you, Tevia.
Tell him like it is, Doc.
She can't become Wolverine again because it's not her name. These aren't titles; they're names. No, I am so tired of the brand dilution of everybody. We get every single group gets their own Wolverine or Spider-Man. No, there's one. The end. Period. Honestly, I don't even like the fact that she's a derivative to begin with. And I've never been a super fan of hers. I've always tolerated her because she was an interesting counter to where Wolverine is, where she actually got turned into that weapon that he thought he was, that they tried to make him. And that was always interesting. But it's his name, not a title. She can come up with her own damn name. Hopefully, though, when she comes out of the vault, she'll actually be unique.
Yeah.
So she's certainly going to be evolved.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe when she comes out of the vault, she'll actually have something that makes her interesting.
Hopefully someone tries to call her Wolverine and she's like, listen, that's Wolverine. You call me X-23. This is what I do that's unique.
Yes. Or give her a new name. I mean, yeah. No.
Wolverette, huh?
Yeah, Wolverette. I think somebody else came up with that.
That'll be
Wolverina. Whatever.
There we go.
When will those claws fit perfect?
When they're made for a girl.
Mm-hmm. Amen, sisters.
Oh, God. I got to get out of here. Ryan Wilson says, I can't wait till Children of the Atom by Vida Ayala because I love watching all my comic book heroes being turned into women and people of color. I don't think the actual heroes are becoming this. I think it's teenagers pretending to be those heroes. What do you think about that, Ash?
I try to stay away from anything Vida Ayala does. It's terrible. Until Marvel and DC can just get their act together and make every single character a black lesbian, I don't want anything to do with it.
That's what it's going to be.
Do it all. Either go big or go home.
There you go.
I think that'll solve all the problems. We can all just finally move along, and no one complain anymore. And all the characters, we can just have our stories back. Children of the Atom is dumb. This is just a big exploit. Oh, we don't got enough X books. Oh, I'm surprised. Why is there only one X-Men book? Why can't there be an Uncanny X-Men and a all new X-Men and an astonishing X-Men? And what's Marvel doing? Why do we need Children of the Atom?
Until all the X-Men are Hispanic, black.
Why is Marvel trying to take every single mutant and give them a book?
Women. Yeah.
No.
Hey, look! Remember that kid in Marauders issue 4 or 5? It was on the shore of Brazil. He's got a book now.
No one remembers that kid but Dane Barrett.
You will when Vita Isle is writing it.
FF2 says, "What are your thoughts on Aquaman by Jeff Johns? I'm hoping on getting the omnibus. Should I get it?" That's got to be a Breen question. Should he get the Aquaman by Jeff Johns?
Absolutely. And while you're at it, go back and get some of the other Aquamans, like the Peter David run. Hell, get the David Michelini run in the 70s. There's all kinds of good Aquaman out there, but Jeff Johns probably is the best Aquaman writer.
Well, what did he do with the
Abnett run from Rebirth?
What's that?
Even better than the Abnett run from Rebirth?
I've read more of the Jeff Johns, so yeah, because I wasn't buying Rebirth in the early things. I've gone back and read the first couple, and it's close. I mean, I said I've no gripes with either one of them. Because like I said, Aquaman's one of those characters that it's kind of like Daredevil at Marvel. He's had a ton of really good writers. It's just that Aquaman's never had the Frank Miller run that at least put Daredevil on the map for that particular time. But I mean, there's no shortage of great Aquaman runs out there to choose from, if you just can get past the fact that the character's never really been huge. But as I said, a lot of great runs.
So I like Dan Abnett's Aquaman run, but at certain point in the story, he becomes a secondary figure to Mira as she ascends to his throne, and he's thought of as less than her, and I didn't like that part.
I'm guessing he didn't have a whole lot of say in that.
Abnett?
Yeah, I'm guessing there was probably some kind of editorial mandate that Mira is going to get a push because the movie was coming out. They wanted people to know both characters.
I will say that
she got her own miniseries, and then they gave her those graphic. She was like one of the first youth graphic novels that they pushed. Remember that one?
Yeah.
When they launched their new line of kids graphic novels. It was all about Mira.
I really like Dan Abnett, but if he has a hero with a female character that's within 40 yards of him, the male hero, always ends up being subservient. He did the same thing with Rise. He's done it with other things. So I think it's just like a Dan Abnettism. But otherwise, he's a great writer. Jeff Johns' run's probably much better.
A short answer is, if Jeff Johns is writing a DC character, then you should get it. Jeff Johns in DC is like Stanley in Marvel. I mean, it's just, for me, that's what I think.
All right, Ash, this one's basically directed right at you. Frank Miller should retire. Tevye is just on fire today.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I mean, the person who is happy that Lara is being called Wolverine again wants Frank Miller to retire. I don't know what to say. Legends don't need to retire. They can write into the sunset. Frank Miller, just keep on writing, Frank. Maybe you'll hit something gold again. Maybe you won't, but I don't care. I'll be eager to check out what your next book is either way.
There you go. Screw you, Tevye. All right. Dark Admiral March Hare says, thoughts on the upcoming ongoing Wolverine title. I find it hard to believe that they'll top Hama Silvestri's run. Well, that's a high hurdle to clear, but I do think it's going to be really good. Ben Percy's X-Force has been the best series in Dawn of X so far, and I think he has a really good feel for Wolverine. He also did 2 scripted audio series that you can get on podcast format where they tell audio stories for Wolverine. He loves the character. Whenever he speaks about the character, he's very excited about it. Pele, do you think Percy's got it in him to challenge Hama and Silvestri's run?
Probably not, but it'll still be interesting. I think that I think there's a lot of potential there. I these days, unless it's just certain particular creators, I am very apprehensive. But I always hope for the best and prepare for the worst. But I don't have anything negative really to say. I'm hoping for the best. Put it that way.
Boom, there you go. I think it's going to be great. I'm really excited for it, except for the cover price of the first issue. Old School Comics is saying it's easy to believe Miller is overrated now, but when his Daredevil Born Again came, it was a sensation. Back issues flew out of the long boxes. Each issue was a topic of conversation in my LCS. That is actually one of the best comic stories I've ever read. As far as I'm concerned, his run on Daredevil is the best work Frank Miller's ever done, but he's certainly not overrated. He has not aged like a fine wine. His story craft has deteriorated as he's gotten older, but in his prime, Frank Miller is one of the premier talents the industry has ever seen.
Yes. Yeah.
Probably the best writer-artist combo.
He is responsible for where comics are today. Look at The Dark Knight Returns. He revitalized an industry that was slumping and set it on fire with that one seminal work. So, I know Alan Moore Watchmen that was already stewing at the time too, but that was more of a critical success. Dark Knight Returns was a financial success of biblical proportions. So it really set the comics world on fire when it came out, and the Marvel, DC, and also Marvel owe him a great deal for his. For what he's done for comics.
Well, I
you also want to consider too, like, I don't think there's been a person in comics history that's had more influence for a lesser body of work. If you just like pound for pound the amount of work that Frank Miller's put out there versus the amount of influence that's come from it, you look at
maybe McFarlane, but
McFarlane's put hundreds and hundreds, books out there.
Yeah, but if you just like remove Spawn from the equation and you look at just his work at the big two and all that, it's not a huge body of work there.
No, but he didn't revolutionize anything. He was a hot artist. He changed how we saw art driving comics. He was the fundamental guy that made image possible.
Because I don't think there's anybody who didn't walk by the stands when ASM 300 was put out and wasn't just gobsmacked by that cover.
Well, you know what? Ryan Wilson has a good question. If Frank is responsible for the way comics are today, wouldn't that be a bad thing? And you know what? Frank, I think, there's a nature to Frank where he's a little bit of a double-edged sword. He showed where comics could go, but because he was so vastly superior to so many of the other creators that were out there, and so many of the inadequate creators try to copy him, that they're swinging for the fences, and in my opinion, a lot of times they strike out.
Yeah.
Whereas, Frank was a power hitter, to use a, baseball analogy, but everyone else, thought that they were Hank Aaron or Barry Bonds, and they didn't juice up like Barry did.
I think he brought out the best in a lot of his peers.
Yeah, I think he raised what people believed comics could be. I believe other creators came along after Frank Miller and was like, oh yeah, we can do more than it's kind of like, when human achievement's kind of that way. We didn't think we could break a 4-minute mile until a guy did it. And then once it's done, like, everyone's breaking it. Frank Miller kind of was like that 4-minute mile of comics. Like, he came along and he showed like, hey, look, we can go beyond. And it's kind of broke the bubble open, and other people were able to make some big achievements. I don't think we get some of the comics we get today, without Frank Miller. But when we say like that he's responsible for the industry today, I took Wes's comment to be like, I think it was Wes that was talking about this, that said, talking about what's good in comics today. Obviously, I don't think Frank's responsible for the all the nepotism and all the politics and the Tumblr downsizing. Yeah, the nonsense. Like Miller's responsible for the way we look at comics, or sorry, that we're able to look at comics in a different way. I don't think we have comics like The Boys today if we never had Frank Miller.
Yeah, you're probably right. And something else about a couple things about Frank Miller's. You have to have been rated to be overrated. For one, ask Roger Bannister if you ever want to add that to your 4-minute mile story. But I
always count on Breen.
I'm here for you, buddy. But I don't know if you guys remember what it was. When Dark Knight came out, I was already well into my 20s when that hit the comic book shops, and to me that's the last great organic just massive amounts of excitement in this industry. And what I mean by that is, like, there have been other things since then, like the death of Superman, but that was covered in the press and brought people out of the woodwork thinking they were going to pay for their kids' college by buying boxes of them. I mean, the organic excitement that Dark Knight generated was amazing.
It was honestly on par with something like the way that Claremont was able to, it happened in a shorter period of time, but the way that Claremont was able to create that just enthusiasm for X-Men.
Yeah, but this was like, it's like this, I mean, I remember, I think Rolling Stone or Spin, one of the rock magazines even covered it. But I mean, it was just like, the excitement was palpable in the stores. I mean, it's just like, man, this is amazing. I mean, you couldn't keep enough of them in stock.
Oh no, it was
Dark Knight Returns.
The first time we ever saw. It was the first time we ever saw 3rd, 4th, and 5th printings on comics.
Yeah,
I mean, so the second prints, okay, that's fine, but then it went to the 3rd, then it went 4th, and then the 5th for number 1, and everybody's sitting going, "Wow, this is unreal." Nobody could believe it. It just blew their mind.
And you weren't getting a parking spot at your LCS unless you got there early the day that number 2, 3, or 4 came out.
And it was also one of the first comics that before issue number 2 came out, issue 1 came out, issue number 2 came out, issue number 1 was worth more than cover price. And that was unheard of. That had never happened before.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Mm-hmm.
For people that weren't there, what I like to equate Dark Knight Returns, because I feel like looking back today, media doesn't really reflect it correctly. I think a lot of people who came into comics after the turn of the century, they've heard about it from old timer fans, like, oh yeah, Dark Knight Returns, we know it was big. If you weren't there, you don't really understand how big this was. Like, Dark Knight Returns was to comics, it's about the closest equivalent that comics has ever seen to what Star Wars did in the 70s for movies. It came out of nowhere. It didn't have, the comics industry wasn't a big thing, right? Just like the movie industry in the 70s wasn't a big, and then Lucas created like the first blockbuster, and Miller with Dark Knight Returns sort of created the first mega, monster success comic that we would later on see with, the Image guys and things that we'd, when McFarlane came on to, his own Spider-Man book, we would see those things repeated later, but it was never seen before then. Mm-hmm. And even today, just like how Star Wars is revered and people look back and go, about 40 years ago, that movie changed my life. Comic fans that were there, not everyone, but many comics that can go, man, yeah, Dark Knight Returns changed everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was during that time that Batman first really surged. During the Batman Michael Keaton movie, all that was kind of happening at the same time, and Batman just hit a level that no comic character before had ever hit. So it was, he was kind of changing the game at that point. that's when I think Batman became the number one comics character, and kind of for a while, and maybe even still to this day, it depends who you ask, superseded Spider-Man as the face of comics in general, as the most popular character.
No, not Spider-Man. Sorry, Spider-Man has been the most lucrative licensing character.
I'm not saying over all time. I'm saying for that period of time, during that time that Batman was at the top right there, he was more popular than Spider-Man for a while.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah, in the 80s for sure. I mean, think about it. Batman was able to get Jack Nicholson, and for youngsters today that don't understand the power of Jack Nicholson being in a movie, for Jack Nicholson to be in a comic book movie and being the Joker, that was exactly. And no one was dreaming of making a Spider. Stan Lee was dreaming about someone someday making a Spider-Man movie, but it wasn't happening. No one cared, but they did care about Batman.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I do want to make one correction. Ash said that Star Wars was the first blockbuster. Jaws was the first blockbuster.
Gone with the Wind. Sorry. Gone with the Wind. It was, I mean,
still the number one.
It's not a summer blockbuster. When you say blockbuster, it's a summer movie.
Gone with the Wind was in theaters for over a year.
Hold on. Comic Nerds Down Under says, has Kelly Sue DeConnick been taken off of Aquaman? Her sales just completely tanked. I thought Higgins had only a one-off on 56. That is correct. She is still on Aquaman. She's listed as being the writer in Aquaman 59 in April. She has not been removed, but she should be.
Oh, Wes, may I say something quickly?
Yes.
When I was talking about great Aquaman runs, Kelly Sue DeConnick is not one of them, just to make that clear.
All right. Well, just in case you're wondering about Kelly Sue DeConnick's Aquaman, not classic. Does anyone actually? I read the first issue, and that was enough for me. Did anyone else read it? Ash, you love DC. Did you read it?
I know. In fact, I was just about to start collecting Aquaman because everyone told me how great Dan Abnett's run was, and I was like, "Yay, I'm going to start!" And then made the announcement like the next day or the day after, and I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm glad I didn't start picking that book up." So I went and bought all the Dan Abnett books in the trade instead, and didn't look back.
God, the Higgins one-off was good too. It made me realize how much I missed that character.
No way I'm touching. You see what Kelly Sue DeConnick did with Captain Marvel? No way.
All right. Trevor McGuire says Kubert is an iconic X artist for sure. What do you guys think?
Which one? There's three of them. Come on, Trevor.
Gotta be more specific, sir.
There's three of them.
And honestly, you know what? Either of them, I can't put in the top 5.
No.
As good as they are.
Oh, X-Men's like the Lakers when it comes to or the Yankees or whichever league you want. Like they just have all the superstars.
Yeah, like you can look at, like, you just run through, it's a murderer's row of just legendary artists. I mean, literally, who hasn't done them is the question. Like of the true legends, what? Frank Miller?
He did Wolverine miniseries. That kind of counts.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, yeah, you're right. Todd didn't.
No Todd McFarlane X-Men.
But
that sucks. Not even like an annual.
Pretty much everyone else that, I mean, even Kirby did them.
Yeah. Neil Adams did them.
Yeah.
John Byrne.
Steranko did them.
It's like,
and that's before their cancellation and subsequent relaunch. Then you get into, Cockrum, Byrne, Silvestri, Paul Smith, Rick Leonardi, Willis Portasio, Jim Lee.
Don't forget the legend John Romita Jr.
Yeah. John Romita Jr. when he was really legit.
Of artists.
Oh my goodness! Yeah. So for those of you guys in the audience, for those of you that we're talking about, in our back channel, we've been having a little bit of quips back and forth about John Romita Jr. and I've been maintaining that he's a legend, and some other of the aficionados have been mocking me for it. So that's one inside joke.
He's had moments of brilliance, but lately he just sucks.
The Gail Simone of comic artists.
Yeah.
That I still don't believe Gail Simone has ever had a moment of brilliance. But
you should read some of her Wonder Woman run.
No, thank you.
Birds of Prey.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, look, the closest that Todd ever got to X-Men was the one issue of his Incredible Hulk run that had Wolverine in it. What was it, 340?
He had a Spider-Man issue or a Spider-Man
God.
story with Wolverine in it.
Yeah.
It was like 4 issues.
Yeah, the 6-issue.
Like the first, I think it was his first run, right?
It was in the adjectiveless Spider-Man book.
I'm still kicking myself for selling that issue of Hulk.
Yeah, but I mean, other than that, like, that's the closest Todd got. But yeah, like, look, when you come, I mean, hell, Joe Madureira.
Oh yeah,
you know,
Joe Madureira.
You have a legit straight up murderer's row in X-Men history, and I can't put either of the Kuberts.
Don't forget the Legend of Legends. Ethan Van Sciver did X-Men.
Well, Frank Quitely,
yeah.
You know, hell, Silvestri came back and did his more modern style, where he's a lot less sketchy and it's a lot less, you know, the inks doing the finishes, and where because you know, his first run around, he mostly just did layouts, and kind of Dan Green did a lot of the finish stuff, and it was the reason why he was able to do 2 issues a month. But no, like, you know, he even came back and used his more modern style. I mean, there's dozens of other, you know, the Dodds.
Right, we get it. There's a lot of X-Men artists,
and I can't, as a result, I can't put any of the Kuberts on a top 5 list. I don't even know if I can fit them into a top 10 list.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Ash. Michael Keaton is the best Batman. Change comic book black belt's mind.
He was in a movie by the complete hack Tim Burton, who didn't understand Batman at all. So, unfortunately, he was limited by that.
No, I wouldn't call him a hack at that point.
Tim Burton?
It was he became a hack later on. Burton's Batman, I think, you know, it kind of brought the campiness, you know, from the series forward. You know, it was not really the Dark Knight Batman. He was, you know, he was more like the, you know, campy gadgets, let's have fun Batman, you know, kind of.
Tim Burton, one famous for saying, "I have not and will not ever read a comic book."
That's irrelevant. He still brought it closer. He still brought it closer to the television show than anybody else since.
Well, no. What about Schumacher? I think Schumacher did better closer to the TV show.
He went over the top on that.
Batman is an abomination.
It is. Yeah. It is.
Bat nipples.
I'm not defending
bat
it. I'm
nipples.
just saying it's closer to the show.
All you gotta say is bat nipples.
I do agree. Michael Keaton is the best Batman, as far as I'm concerned. Breen, tell us who's the best Batman.
I'd have to give serious consideration to Michael Keaton as the best Bruce Wayne. I don't think there's really been a bad one in the movies, but except for maybe Clooney. But
yeah.
But you know, there's something. You know, I remember when they made the choice to cast Michael Keaton. I remember how everybody just, you know, blew all kinds of gaskets saying that's, you know, how can Mr. Mom be Batman? And yeah, it's just the way they did the character. I mean, you know, it was like an aloofness and just like a mysteriousness to the character that you never really knew where he was coming from. And you know, kind of like the scene in the penthouse where he, you know, lost his temper or pretended to, so he could basically, you know, put the plate in, you know, when he got shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it just, you know, his version, at least in the first one, because I really don't remember that much about the second one. I thought his portrayal in the first one, you know, is probably still my favorite of the character itself, and because I mean, years down the line, I mean, they all the effects got so much better, everything's got so much bigger and better, that as far as just like mood and atmosphere, I'll still take Keaton in the first Batman.
All right, Mark C with the $10 super chat. If you only look at Romita Jr. for his rendering ability, then you see a hack. John Jr. is great because he's the best graphic storyteller since Will Eisner. Is that so, Pele?
I'm not sure about that. I would say that he ranks. What's the full question again? Just so I can see this.
He's saying that John Romita Jr. For his rendering ability might be a hack, but he's the greatest graphic storyteller since Will Eisner.
I would say that Mobius probably would be more accurate on that as far as the best graphic storyteller. Also, I'd probably I would probably put him in the top 10. But Mobius, I'd say, would be the best graphic storyteller since Eisner, in my opinion.
All right, Ash, you are the president of the John Romita Jr. fan club. Is this man correct?
Unfortunately, no. But Mark, thank you for pointing out that John Romita Jr. is an amazing sequential artist. He knows how to visually tell a story. I actually think that's one of the reasons Frank Miller is a great artist, because I think Frank Miller is the greatest graphic storyteller since Will Eisner. And like John Romita Jr., if you just look at Frank Miller's rendering ability, you also see a hack sometimes, but he knows how to visually tell a story.
I think
so. John Romita Jr. would just be a little below him for me.
I think if you look at the 2-issue run of Silver Surfer that Mobius did, read it.
Dude, that's phenomenal. No disrespect to Mobius.
Huh?
That's phenomenal. You're correct, and I mean no disrespect to Mobius.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at those 2 issues, so little dialogue, so little narrative, but the story is seamless, and it's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Everyone should read that, by the way. It's phenomenal.
That is a must read for any. If you do not have that 2-issue run, go get it. It's a good investment. It always seems to scale up in value. Every few years, it'll pop up a little bit more. It's a great investment. Go get a couple nice near mint copies of it and just enjoy them. Because
one of the best things Stan Lee that I've ever read.
Yeah,
maybe he's written something better, but I haven't read it. Breen can probably point me to something, but it's a phenomenal story.
Yeah, just as far as graphic storytelling, that story that's told there in just Mobius's beautiful, minimalistic yet incredibly detailed style is incredible.
All right, Doc, who do you say is the best graphic storyteller since Will Eisner?
I'm inclined to agree with Ash on Frank, but I have. And Pele makes a great point on Mobius too, but I have a kind of a dark horse for it, and it's Jose Ladron.
Yeah.
He's never really had a lot of big work, at least in the US market, but go and read his run on Cable with James Robinson. And from the, late 90s, it was incredibly well done as a storyteller, and it kind of gives you a very Kirby-esque feel to it. He wasn't on for a long time. I think maybe a half dozen issues, a dozen issues, something like that. But he was really he's a great storyteller.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mark C, for the super chat. Great discussion as always. 2000 Man Reborn is saying most popular characters: Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and Wonder Woman. Incorrect. Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and probably Wolverine.
Yeah.
Definitely not Wonder Woman. Anyone have something else to say on that one?
No, I agree completely.
Yeah.
Because the first 3, honestly, though, I hesitate to even add Wolverine to that list, because the first 3, in my opinion, are the only solo heroes that can legitimately carry 2 titles in a month. Like 2 titles a month, you know, they're the only 3 that can do it on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Wolverine can handle a second book, you know, temporarily. Plus he's in a lot of team books. That doesn't affect Superman and Batman, even though they're in Justice League. Spider-Man, it does affect Spider-Man a little bit when he's in a team book, but as a solo creator, or solo hero, he can handle 2. Deadpool can not handle 2. Harley can't handle 2. Wonder Woman is kind of on the same level as Wolverine, where she can sometimes carry a second book, but I'd say that's few and far between.
She's never actually been a huge seller.
She is not.
Yes.
She is incredibly iconic.
Yes.
And
She's
I would
more than popular.
Yes, I would say her marketability and her iconicism vastly outweigh her sales ability.
Mm-hmm. And Mark C with the $5 super chat is coming back. He says, go back and look at Amazing Spider-Man and Incredible Hulk issues of 2002. Enough said. John Romita Jr. will change your mind. If not Jr., then Wallace would.
Oh, no, he's talking about the Nuff Said month right after 9/11, where they did silent issues. And John Romita Jr. had 2. He had Amazing Spider-Man 36, and I don't remember what issue of Incredible Hulk it was, but phenomenal as a, you know, telling a story without any dialogue.
I do like my silent issues. I probably should go back and read those again. Well, we got any other good questions? What am I looking for? We got a lot of stuff going on. There's so many questions here today.
There is. We're just trying to get through them.
Uh-oh. Ryan Wilson making an ass of himself. I used to think Val Kilmer was a good Batman. I don't even care what you said after that. That was enough. Val Kilmer was a terrible Batman.
Oh, you know what? George is right. ASM 36 was not silent. It came out in the same month, but they didn't do enough said for that. There was dialogue in it because, but it was mostly Spidey just observing and a narrator. Yeah, it was not a silent issue. I forgot about that. That's that one with the all black cover.
Boom. All right, FF2 is saying Marvel should recycle names like Wild Thing for Laura instead. That name hasn't been used since the 80s or 90s. Is he correct, Doc?
Yes.
Wild Thing was Laura's original name.
Let's do it. Let's go back.
That was the name that Ethan and was it Casada came up with?
There were 3 iterations because Wild Thing was used twice. It was in MC2, you know, that Marvel Comics Next Generation thing that had like J2 and Avengers Next and all that stuff. And it was also, I think, in the Heroes Reborn that Ethan did. So, yeah, I think it's been used twice at this point. Why not use it again?
So we've got probably the best comment so far from Tevi Smolka, of all people. What about Nightcrawler? That's a great question. What about Nightcrawler? He's my favorite X-Men. He's actually above Wolverine, in my opinion. And in the X-Men arcade game, he was without a doubt heads and shoulder above every other playable character in that game. Nightcrawler is amazing. The man gets no love. He's not even in any of the ongoing Dawn of X series, and it's bullshit. Ash, what do you say?
Modern writers don't know how to write people who believe in God.
Exactly.
Well, they're definitely working Daredevil over right now. He's banging everything with a pulse.
Yeah,
right. But Daredevil's more of a cultural Catholic, so it's a little bit easier, I think, for some writers to approach that. But Nightcrawler is a fully devout believer, like, and I
Hell, the
think
man became
the
a
cultural
priest.
Marxists that have infested the comic book industry don't know
Turned
what
him
to do with
almost into
this,
an atheist.
and so they'll just put him in the corner and just like, okay, we'll just leave him off, and now he's a part of the inner circle. Okay, we can just have whatever. Nightcrawler is very hard to write for most writers, I think, and I don't think he's been done well in 20 years.
Yeah, if you don't have a real connection with religion and you don't understand the intricacies of faith, as far as if you don't understand the Catholic Catechism, then you do not understand Nightcrawler. So I think that's where modern writers fall down with him.
There was the Nightcrawler miniseries, or I don't remember if it was a mini or a maxi, that Claremont and Todd Knock did a couple of years ago. Was it 6? Yeah. And I never read it. Was it any good? Did you read it, Wes?
Yeah, it was all right. I was hoping for more, Claremont and everything, but Nightcrawler he needs more.
He is.
One of my
No,
top 5
Nightcrawler.
favorite characters.
He's easily my top 3 X-Men.
Too bad. So we do have a question from Doug Johnson. This is a great question. I'd love to talk about this. Justice League 40 this coming week with Venditti. Good jumping on point. Should I jump on? I'm a Marvelite, but looking to broaden my horizons. Abso-fucking-lutely. Robert Venditti is my favorite writer. He's great with all these characters. He's really good at lore building. I don't think he's going to get to do this because it's going to be an abbreviated run on Justice League. Once we get to 5G, his audition is basically what this is going to be over. But I can guarantee you it's going to be a great story arc. Doug Mankey is on the art, as well as, oh man, who's the other artist? I can't remember the second artist, but the art. Oh, it's Lopresti. It's Aaron Lopresti is the secondary artist, because it's a bi-monthly book, or twice monthly book, and it's going to be great. I guarantee it's going to be excellent, and I can't wait for it. Ash, I know you're a Venditti guy. You're going to be reading
Venditti. Anyone who's new to Venditti, though, one thing I would just caution you is he does have a style of writing where he likes to build up to things. So he may spend like first 4 issues kind of doing the setup for his story, his amazing Hawkman run on issues 1 through 12. It really doesn't start. It's like a roller coaster, right? You're on that climb to the big top, and then like issue 5, it's just like starts to crest over and go downhill, and downhill in a good way, not. And then also like his Freedom Fighters, issue 5 or 6 is where it just starts banging on all cylinders. So be aware if you're our first time Venditti person, that he will spend that time building up the story, getting the character development, and don't look for it to just bang right away.
And
or he could
also
surprise me, but
one of the writers that does long form storytelling well. He doesn't take the Bendis approach where it's just menial dialogue that means nothing. Everything in a Venditti story means something, but he can tell a story over 50 issues.
Yeah, he's great. If anyone's going to take over Justice League, which I'm really happy with, I couldn't be happier than Venditti.
Mark C. with another $5 super chat. You guys are aware that Marvel currently has Claremont under contract and paying him to sit home and not write. Pele, You're aware of this, right?
Yeah. Can't say I'm really happy about that. I think that he should be writing something. I think he should be contributing because he's a great writer. I don't understand the intricacies involved. Why they do that? Do you understand how that came to be, Doc?
There's a couple. What's that?
Does he have a page rate to go along with his? Okay.
Yes. My understanding is his page rate is essentially outside of their comfort zone for paying him, and additionally, he's still operating under the contracts for residuals that he signed back in the way back in the day, back in the 80s, where collected editions, trade paperbacks, that kind of stuff were incredibly rare. They were reserved exclusively for the best stories and the most popular stories and the most important stories. And they don't want him writing for DC. So he's essentially getting a massive paycheck in his residuals, especially in modern Marvel, how they've started collecting everything. He's now getting big checks from stuff that he hasn't looked at in 35 years, because they were never really collected before. Basically everything other than Dark Phoenix Saga and a couple of the omnibuses that they put out in the 2000s, and the trade paperback for Extinction Agenda, and the way that they kept God Loves Man Kills in print for a few years. That was really, he's still getting checks for that. Now everything else that they never collected is getting collected, and he's getting checks based on residual rates from back then. That's seriously just absurd money for essentially not having to do anything. Now,
doesn't he also get a bit of a licensing type of issue, or visual for whenever a character pops up in another book?
Oh yeah, he gets money from he has so many different Marvel revenue income sources that they're sitting there going, my belief is they're sitting there going, we can't justify writing this guy another check. We have to keep him under contract or else he'll go elsewhere. And we'll need him. We need him kind of for clout, and to bring him in to do something every once in a while. But they can't afford his page rates. I don't think so, at least. There's always the possibility that he just straight up doesn't want to do a monthly anymore, which is always possible. Apparently, based on watching his Instagram, he's very, very much enjoying his semi-retirement of just flying around Europe, eating a bunch of really rich-looking foods, and going to shows there to do appearances and signings. And then I think he's still teaching a writing course at Columbia. I believe, at least. I'm not sure. I know he did for a while. It was either Columbia or NYU. He was teaching a writing course. So that may be more that he really wants to do. So it could be that he's under contract and he just doesn't want the work.
Right.
All right. So Jamal Lewis is saying, which Dawn of X book will we see the Avengers in? I like to see what new conflict can be started with a New Mutant Nation. It's got to be X-Men, right? It's got to be Jonathan Hickman's X-Men. I can't see it happening in the New Mutant series. It doesn't really work for Marauders. The only other one that would kind of work for is X-Force, but I don't see them going after the Avengers quite yet. So I think they'll show up in X-Men. Anybody else got an idea?
Could be in one of the many new books that they're going to be releasing.
Could be in X4. Fantastic Four, X-Men. It could be in Giant Size. But I think Hickman will keep any Avengers crossover in his book. I don't think he's gonna pass that one off to anybody else.
I agree. All right. Hey Wes, speaking of Venditti, are you a big Exo Man of War fan? Am I? That's my favorite comic book character. His run on Exo Man of War is fantastic. The follow-up run by Matt Kent is almost as good. And the first three story arcs in Exo Man of War by Robert Venditti are basically the best modern retelling of the Genesis story I've ever read in my life. It's it's probably the reason I'm still reading comic books today. I like the idea of comics. When I read Robert Venditti's Exo Man of War, I realized I just love comics and the medium, and he's the reason I have this channel, among other things, but he's a big part of it, and that's fantastic. If you have not read Robert Venditti's Exo Man of War, you are missing out on something special.
Here. Absolutely agreed.
I just don't care about Valiant. I just can't get into Valiant.
I'm telling you, you read these books, you will, Doc. I was the same way. I skipped all the Valiant in the 90s when I was I skipped it all. And then I tried that Exo in 2012. It's phenomenal.
I loved Valiant in the 90s. I was one of the first people to really jump on board with it in my area as far as, and then the quality of it just plummeted off the face of the earth. And it was about the time that Valiant and Image did their crossover. And I was like,
wasn't that when Acclaim bought them though?
Yeah. Well, it was before that even. It's just kind of the qualities were, and it just seemed to almost happen across the board, except for a couple titles, except for maybe I think Bloodshot. And it was just like, oh, this is really bad. And then Bloodshot went under as far as readability, and I couldn't get into it anymore. But yeah, I mean, they have an incredible following, and the relaunch, did really well with a lot of readers. But I'm just, I'm currently not a big fan. But
the Valiant shared universe from 2012 to 2017 is the best shared comic universe I've ever read, and I think it's almost perfect. Comic Book Black Belt sends the £5 super chat. Love listening to your combined knowledge, guys. Thanks for a great stream. I tend to buy just reprints now on multiple levels. Your insights are so helpful. Well, thank you very much. We also buy a lot of back issues. Breen, do you have back issues?
I have lots of back issues.
I got a few.
And some comics, too.
I've got a couple.
So thank you very much for the support of the channel. Also with us is Nola Nerd, Who Dat. Good morning, Wes, Ash, Doc, Eric, and Pele. Go Chiefs. Yes, sir. We're very excited here. I'm keeping my son out of school tomorrow. He's gonna stay here. He's gonna watch the Chiefs Super Bowl game with his old man and hopefully witness, the first Chiefs Super Bowl victory in my lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a good dad does. Good dad takes the time to take his kid out of school so he can watch football. And that's, I'm just kidding. It's really true. It's really true though.
Listen, I've been alive for 42 years, and the Chiefs have never made the Super Bowl. There's no telling when it's going to happen again. I want them to enjoy it.
1970. Not in your lifetime. They didn't do it in your lifetime, but 1970 they were in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't want him to miss it. Might never happen again.
May never happen again. Yeah. It's like the Cubs when there was World Series.
They better beat the 49ers. That's all I gotta say.
I'm seeing that I'm seeing the betting line now is at even odds. So we'll have to see.
Smirking Gun Reviews. Great guy, great channel, and I've got a little something lined up with him. If you're a Daredevil fan, we're going to be making a segment that I think you're going to love. Claremont's going to be at this year's C2E2 in Chicago, and he's hoping to talk to him and ask him about the current direction of X-Men. Is anyone else going to C2E2? That'd be awesome. Doc?
I hate Chicago, man. I really do. That's one city that I just dread every time I got to go there.
So dangerous.
Well, I mean, it's not even that. Driving in that city is a nightmare. The road might as well be Beirut in 1980. Yeah, the roads might as well be Beirut in 1980. It's parking's atrocious. I really, really dread every time I have to go to Chicago, and I normally have to go there once or twice a year.
Chicago is so bad that people mug themselves.
Actually, what's funny is I spent a couple months in Chicago. I was doing some work there, installing a network, and I never had a problem. I was walking around downtown Chicago at night. I don't know the old boroughs and areas of Chicago, but never had a problem in Chicago. Everything was great and lovely. The first time I was in Huntsville, Alabama, I got mugged. So, and then like 6 months later, I was mugged again in New Orleans during Mardi Gras. And it's like, I've been to New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and I have the worst luck in southern states being mugged. I don't know what I have no idea. Maybe it's because I'm a big southern boy, and all the northerners and people in the west are like, oh geez, I'm not messing with him. He's probably carrying a gun. But
I don't know. Maybe you look like a victim, Pele. All right, we got two more questions. This one's going to be real quick. It's my last. I personally would love Claremont to write Exiles. Get out of here, baby. What the fuck, man? You trying to give Doc a heart attack?
We already had that happen once. We already had it happen once. He turned it into the Psylocke show. He doesn't have any interest in the characters that make Exiles great, like Blank and Talia and Sasquatch and John Proudstar, none of the and Blank and
Wolvie.
Yeah, and he and Mimic.
Wolvie.
Yeah. So if we're gonna get the original team back, which is what made that so great, that kind of that core of the team, the rest of it would kind of die off, and every once in a while they did kill a core member, but that was what made it so spectacular. And then Chris came on and he just turned it into the Psylocke show and got rid of Blink. And I'm sorry, but Exiles without Blink is just not Exiles. And then you get Salad Man's version. Yeah. All
right, on that note, this is the last one. We got a $5 super chat from Mark C. Currently, the only book I'm reading from my LCS is Eric Powell's The Goon. After 20 years, this book still doesn't disappoint. Anyone reading The Goon?
Yes, I do pick it up and look at it whenever we get it in, and it's interesting. It's a very well written book. I like the writing style. The artwork the artwork is eye catching. If you want something that's outside of the norm, a little bit different. It's a good book to pick up. Back issues of that, God, I can't keep anything old in. Like the first 5 issues, you might as well forget it. Those were printed. Those were printed like 4,000 copies. Back when Breen was like in high school. So it's really, really hard to find those.
I don't think high school existed back when Breen was 15.
Good point. I think that they were still, they were still hammering out tablets, and
yeah, you turned 15, you were already married and probably off to war and might be dead with 3 kids.
All those comedians out there, and ain't none of them showed up today.
She's got a point.
I've never read The Goon. It's always, well, not always. I've only discovered it kind of recently, but it intrigued me. Didn't know really where to start, and
it's certainly off the beaten path.
It sells out every week or month or whenever it comes out. Like I barely even see it hit the shelf. So it's been a kind of a tough thing to get into, unfortunately.
Ryan Wilson wants to let you know, Wes, that if you want a good copy of XO Man of War #1, let him know, and he'll give it to you.
I would love a great copy of XO Man of War #1. I do live in the Philippines, so I can tell you that shipping it to me would probably be expensive. But if you would like to do that, I would be very grateful, and I would treasure it, because that is my favorite comic book character. And it's very hard for me to get my hands on much here, to be completely honest. That isn't new, being overseas. And thank you very much for the super chat and the offer. I very much appreciate it. And hopefully I will hear from you, and I would love to have that comic book. All right, guys, it's time for the end of the show. It's time for our comic book recommendations. You can be recommending back comics, but hopefully you're recommending more new comics for this week. And you message me on Twitter. Sounds awesome. Breen, what are you recommending this week?
I'm going to go ahead and recommend the first Superman Spider-Man tabloid crossover from 1976. That's
wow.
Can't beat that story. I read it about once a year.
There you go.
Who wrote it?
Jerry Conway.
Well, that'll work, won't it?
And Ross Andrew did the art, and apparently Neil Adams was brought in to retouch up the faces on the DC characters.
Beautiful. I like that idea. That was short and sweet. Ash, what are you recommending this week?
Oh, that's a good question. Coming up this week, I recommend people check out the new Thor. It's 2 issues out right now. If you've been kind of away from it for any period of time because of certain reasons, Donny Cates is taken over, and he's been known to revamp Marvel Comics for the better. He's done some pretty amazing things. Also, the Sagio Jimbo, man, it's in print again. That's a book anyone can read. You can feel happy and proud to let your kids read it, but yet it's not a childish book. It's fantastic. It's educational. It's great hero stories. There's no nonsense in them. And then, I got a shout out for my boy Robert Venditti starting Justice League 40 this week. If you aren't a Justice League fan, I wasn't a Justice League fan until Scott Snyder pulled me in. And Venditti has never steered me astray, so I'm happy to just give it a try. It's a great team book. It's right now I think it's one of the best DC books. You get a taste of all the heroes. You get some big idea stories. You get some, and Venditti's just, like I said, he just knows how to do it. So that's probably the big recommendation.
Also, I will say on that Donny Cates Thor comic, Nick Klein's art is off the charts. It's really good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And so Tevye, I can't believe I'm putting you up on the screen again. He's recommended Justice League 40, Justice League Odyssey, and the final issue of Marauders. No. Finally, Marauders is a ton of fun.
Oh, man, that's
debatable.
You can't do that to me. I thought Marauders was canceled. I was about to celebrate.
All right, Mark C is saying you can get the first 2 trade paperback omnibuses of the Goon for $30 a piece. Good stuff. It's a good idea. Star Targer is recommending Incredible Hulk reprints of 180 through 182 going on at Marvel. You can't go wrong with Wolverine. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
I just bought all 3 of them a couple of weeks ago, or over the last few months.
Since you're speaking up, what are you recommending?
I'm going to recommend 2 things that I bought this week: X-Men 5 and X-Men 5.
Great.
The one that came out this week and the one that came out in 1963.
Nice.
Yeah, I just bought a copy.
There you go.
And
I see what you did there.
Yep, and they just happen to both be X-Men number 5. And I'd also look, if you guys are wanting, because X-Men 5 from this week was actually really good, other than the Wolverine, validates X-23 as calling herself Wolverine because she hasn't done anything to earn it. Other than that, it was a great issue. But the other things that I'm going to recommend, look, go back and pick up. I know I've recommended them at least once before. Go back and pick up some of the McFarlane Hulk and ASM books. I just picked up a great looking copy of 317 the other day, which was I think was one of the third cover or the second cover appearance of Venom, and maybe the third appearance of Venom. Great cover. Those McFarlane Spidey books are they're awesome.
Yeah, they are. They're a lot of fun. If you haven't read McFarlane's Amazing Spider-Man, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's so much fun.
Oh, and they did release a facsimile edition of ASM 347 this week.
It's true. Yeah, it sold really well, actually.
And it was the Larson Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Spawnfire is recommending Thor Absolutely Something is Killing the Children, and shout out to Xenoscope's Bell Oath of Thorns. I just missed somebody. Where is it? Where's Dion? There he is. Dion, original West Coast Avengers, Justice League 39, Gen 13, Stormwatch, X-Men 5, and X-Force number 6.
I agree with all of those.
FF2, Thor number 2, X-Men 5, Star Wars number 2, X-Force number 6, Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps. Absolutely, that is an amazing Robert Venditti series right there. Ryan Wilson, X-Men 5, X-Force 6, and Marauders 7. I don't think that one came out yet, but it probably is next week. Old School Comics is saying Far Sector number 3, slow start, but it's got some interesting stuff. Daredevil is the best thing at Marvel. I'll agree on the Daredevil. Well, maybe X-Force. It's one of those two. They're both really
Daredevil.
Good. Well, it's debatable. Dane Barrett, X-Men number 5 was amazing. Absolutely it was. X-Men number 5 was hot. And Brian Whitty is recommending Saban's Go-Go Power Rangers and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Good stuff. Ryan Wilson also, Fantastic Four annual number 6 facsimile edition. Black Cat is recommending Flash, Flash Forward, and Justice League Dark. All right, Pele, what are you recommending at the shop?
The comic shop, the shop recommendation for the week was X-Men number 5. I had to look that up because I couldn't remember it. But my recommendation for the week is something a little bit off the beaten path. George R.R. Martin's Clash of Kings number 1 came out this week. If you're a fan of the books, the comics are the comic adaptations of the books, not the television show. So they're exceptional for the most part. They're exceptional storytelling. The adaptations are typically really, really good when Dynamite does them for George Martin, and it's awesome. You know, if you haven't been picking up the comic books based on the books, I highly recommend it. Go back and get the back issues of those. They're also collected in trade paperbacks, but so great to read those. You know, like I said, the books are so superior to the television show. It's not even funny. And we may never get an ending to the books the way George R.R. Martin writes these days, but what books that are out, the adaptations are fantastic, and I recommend them wholeheartedly.
Absolutely.
The big question is, do you think the comic series will overtake George R.R. Martin?
Of course
the
it will.
Show did.
Of course it will.
They'll have to make up their own stories at the end.
Well, what I've heard about is that Dynamite has already been told pretty much how the story ends, because the books are adaptations, or writers for the books. So they're adapting, you know, the much bigger, thicker books for the comics. So they already know how George is going to end it, from what I understand, and they're going to continue forward, you know, writing until the end of the series. So I think when the book finally does come out, it's going to be like the last version of, you know, last version period, provided that, you know, George R.R. Martin doesn't eat too many hamburgers and pass away, which I hope does not happen.
Well, that was depressing. All right, my recommendations.
He's not getting any younger. He's not getting any younger
or thinner.
All right. Well, before my recommendations, Nola Nerd is recommending Thor, Ice Cream Man, Daredevil, the Goon, and Symbiote Spider-Man. That's a damn good list right there. My recommendation, the best comic book, is actually better than X-Men number 5, which it was really hard to do, was Criminal number 12 from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. Just a masterpiece in ending the story. They've already released part of this 12-issue story in a collected edition called Bad Weekend, which is really good. And I think if you read that before you read Cruel Summer, when this comes out in trades, you're going to love them as a companion series. If you're looking for something upbeat and very nice, this isn't the story for you. But if you like a noir, crime noir, it's as good as you're going to buy, or as good as a story as you'll ever find. And it was just phenomenal. Even better than X-Men number 5, which I thought was almost perfect. Ooh. Also, Something Is Killing the Children number 5 was easily the best issue of that series from James Tynion, the 4th so far. I thought it was spectacular. And The Last God number 4 continues the great collaboration from Ricardo Federici on art and Philip Seymour Johnson, I think. Something like that. as the writer, and that dude's in the Army, so that's a good guy. Thank you all so much for joining us this week. I had a great time talking comic books, our first comic books we ever bought, taking questions from the viewers. If you haven't subscribed, hey, subscribe before we say goodbye. Really appreciate it. So I'm up, everybody.
Take care, y'all.